Beijing has not fought a major war since 1979. In 1988, Chinese frigates gunned down 64 Vietnamese sailors. So China, as it's become increasingly powerful, it's got 1.3 billion people, sky-high growth rates, it's got an authoritarian government that calls big business. So China is being increasingly perceived as too good to pass up as a consumer market and a low-wage production platform. So you've got country after country currying favor with Beijing, often cutting ties with Taiwan to do so. So just like I think almost all Japanese auto companies don't sell to Israel because they don't want to alienate their Arab customers. So Britain handed back Hong Kong in 1997. Portugal gave up Macau in 1999. America fast-tracked China into major international institutions such as the World Trade Organization. Half a dozen countries settled territorial disputes with China from 1991 to 2019. More than 20 countries cut diplomatic ties with Taiwan to secure relations with Beijing. So China was steadily advancing its interests without firing a shot, just hiding its capabilities and biding its time. But those days are now over. So China's economy is sputtering. So from 2007 to 2019, growth rates fell by more than half. Productivity declined by more than 10%. So remember, the average Chinese worker is half as productive as the average Turkish worker. Right? China's per capita GNP ranks 75th in the world. Okay, Chinese debt has surged eightfold in the past 14 years. China's population is aging at a devastating pace, the most quickly aging population in human history, of which we're aware. China is on a path to have its population halve in the next 30 years. In the next 15 years, it will lose 70 million working age adults, gain 130 million senior citizens. So countries are less enthralled by China's market. They're more worried about its coercion and aggression. Taiwan is tightening its ties to the US. Taiwan is revamping its defenses. Japan has engaged in the largest military buildup since the Cold War, now talking about doubling defense spending. India is massing forces near China's borders and vital sea lanes. Vietnam and Indonesia are expanding their air, naval, and coast guard forces. Australia is opening up its northern coast to US forces. Australia's acquiring long-range missiles and nuclear-powered attack submarines. France, Germany, and the United Kingdom are sending warships into Northeast Asia. Dozens of countries are looking to cut China out of their supply chains. Anti-China coalitions such as the Quad and AUKUS are proliferating, and globally, opinion polls show that fear and mistrust of China has reached a post-Cold War high. So if Beijing sees that its possibilities for easy expansion are narrowing, it's very likely to resort to more violent methods. So just like a bloke, if he encounters just rejection after rejection after rejection, some blokes turn into Elliot Rodgers. If people feel socially excluded, they're much more likely to latch on to anti-social conspiracy theories such as, oh, there's no such thing as COVID, or vaccines are bad news. This is the result of people feeling socially excluded, and then they latch on to these conspiracy theories, and as a result, latching on to QAnon and the like, they become even more socially excluded. So China is trying to coerce its weaker rivals in the Western Pacific. They provoked a bloody scrap with India in 2020. They were afraid that New Delhi was becoming more closely aligned with Washington. So Chinese Communist Party spent $3 trillion over the past 3 decades building up a military designed to defeat China's neighbors. So now China faces closing windows of opportunity in its most important territorial disputes. So China wants to become the predominant power in Asia and the world, and they want to claim not just Hong Kong, but Taiwan, large chunks of India, and 80% of the East and South China Seas. So most of China's trade goes through the East and South China Seas. So Peter Zion says you can destroy China very easily, just put a couple of destroyers in the Indian Ocean and cut China's energy flows. So China has to import all of its energy. The lights would go out in a few weeks, says Peter Zion. Were the bizarre conspiracy theories about Trump's alleged connections to Russia paranoid fringe conspiracy theories? No, I think they were an effective tactic. So there are conspiracy theories that make you less effective, and then there are conspiracy theories that you simply adopt as a tactic. So that's why you need a clear thinker like myself who's able to separate conspiracy theories that people really believe and leads them down an antisocial path, and then conspiracy theories that are simply invoked as an effective tactic. All right, China's primary antagonists, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, are all part of a strategic chain of US allies, and their territory blocks Beijing's access to the Pacific. So China wants to reabsorb these areas, and it's cultivating a very intense revanchist form of nationalism. So school children study the century of humiliation. So for many Chinese citizens, making China whole again is as much of an emotional as a strategic imperative. And you may say, oh, 40 when it comes to military strategy. Then talk to me about girlish things like emotions. Well, emotions play a huge role in wars. Like the more committed a group is, the more emotionally involved they are, the more formidable, right? The more likely they are to punch above their weight. So Taiwan is the place where China's pressures are most severe. The peaceful reunification has become unlikely. Well, it's silly to talk of reunification because China and Taiwan were never together. Will Chris Cantwell get out of jail early for good behavior? I suspect not. So 68% of the Taiwanese public identify solely as Taiwanese, not as Chinese. 95% want to maintain the island's sovereignty or declare independence. So China retained viable military options because they have missiles that could incapacitate Taiwan's air force and US bases on Okinawa in a surprise attack. That could pave the way for a successful invasion. So President Biden recently stated that America would fight to defend Taiwan from an unprovoked China attack. So Washington is planning to harden Taiwan's defenses, but the military balance looks like it will temporarily shift in Beijing's favor in the late 2020s. As many aging US ships, submarines, and planes will have to be retired. So America could get its ass handed to it in a high-intensity conflict with China later on this decade. So if China does attack Taiwan, Washington would face a choice between escalating or seeing Taiwan conquered. And if Taiwan's conquered, many of America's allies in the anti-China coalition will think that America is not such a good deal to ally with against China. So China regularly sends well-armed Coast Guard vessels into waters surrounding the disputed Senkaku Islands to weaken Japan's control there. So Tokyo wants to regain the strategic advantage, but China could attack Japan just to humiliate it and to deter it from close alliance with the United States.